Well, I trust you had a wonderful weekend, and let's settle for the details of our stories this afternoon. It's official. Your election headquarters has now officially opened, paving the way for unbridled coverage of the electioneering campaign across the length and breadth of the country. In case you don't know, the election headquarters is Joy News brand for election coverage and is the foremost in Ghana, setting the standard for election coverage journalism in Ghana. At the launch today, the Electoral Commission announced it was ditching the idea of holding the election a month earlier. The Commission had proposed to hold the election on 7th November as against the constitutionally accepted 7th December. And the idea was to give the Commission and other stakeholders time to research the bottom for a rerun in case there is one. Dr. Eric Bosman Asare is Deputy Commissioner at the EC, and we'll start with him.
As you rightly pointed out, 2024 is a major year for the Electoral Commission. And as far as we are concerned, the processes rightly began after the 2020 elections. So since 2021, 2022, 2023, and the beginning of the year, we have been putting measures in place to ensure that we have one of the best elections in our history. We shouldn't forget that in 2020, when we had the parliamentary and the presidential elections, all the observers, including the local ones, gave the EC a thumbs up. I remember the European Union Observer Mission even giving us 95%. And in 2024, we are determined to even do more. So all the effective, all the right measures, the Commission is going to double down on them. And again, in terms of November or December, as you may be aware, we had a meeting with our political parties. And one of the major parties indicated clearly that they don't support the change of date from December to November in 2024. So as a commission, we knowing the law requiring that to have such a change, you have to go to Parliament, to have 2/3 of the members of Parliament approving of that particular change. The commission has resolved that we are going to have the elections come December 7th as we did in 2020. So as a commission, we are fully prepared, we are fully ready, and we believe that the successes that we chalked in 2020, we are going to even do more in 2024.
Okay, but would you have the law passed or to lay the foundations properly for a November elections in 2028?
Yes. In that IPAC meeting, that was agreed with the political parties that in the event we cannot marshal the forces of IPAC to have it in November in 2024, the Commission should take the steps to ensure that in 2028 we are going to have it in November. And again, this must be cleared. We were not talking about November 7th. At the IPAC meeting, the decision was a day in November. So it could be a first Monday, a second Monday, a third Monday, or Tuesday, or Friday, or Thursday in November.
Okay, so this is a day.
A day in November, yes.
It could be first Monday in November,
second Monday,
but that will be
Tuesday or Wednesday in that manner.
And when do you hope to go to Parliament with this legislation?
Well, it's something that the Commission has met overwritten. We are looking at all the scenarios, and we are also looking at the calendar of Parliament. But it's something the Commission is committed to it. The Commission is determined to ensure we have it in November in 2020. So within the next few months, this is something the Commission is going to trigger.
One controversy is out of the way, but there's another controversy. It's about the use of the Indelible ink. Is the EC going to use it in the 2024 election or in future elections? Dr. Bosman Asare has some clarification on this rather thorny issue.
We have our mandate clearly specified in the Constitution, and we are there for the people of Ghana. And as an institution, we are always committed to ensuring that we make the Ghana project very, very proud. We want to ensure that everything we have to do to make Ghana's democracy a success, we will do it. Last year, we made it very clear that we thought, when you look at the procedures in our elections, the idea of using the indelible ink is like you are using 2 layers of verification. So the Commission said, if Mr. Evans Mensah is coming to vote, Mr. Evans Mensah will be verified electronically for us to know that indeed it's Mr. Mensah who has been verified. So when you want to go ahead and use the indelible ink, then clearly you don't have confidence in your biometric register. So as a result of that, we postulated that it would be better to do away with the indelible ink. But as a listening institution, we've heard the concerns of the general public, we've heard the concerns of parliamentarians across the aisle, the NPP and the NDC, civil society members, and we've come to the conclusion that if by using the indelible ink, people will have more confidence in the process, why not? Although we still believe that when you do it, you are creating a dual layer of verification, we'll still go ahead and do it because it doesn't change anything. And since the players will believe that it will enhance the integrity, it will promote the integrity, it will deepen the integrity of the process, why not? As a commission, we'll go ahead and do that. So as we speak now, the commission is taking the necessary steps to ensure that all the features that will ensure credible, open, transparent election, we are going to do that, and we are going to get all our players on board to support it.
And so this year, we also have indelible.
This year, we are going to have it.
So that's the clarity there. There's going to be the use of the indelible ink in the 2024 election. But what about security? The Ghana Police Service is meanwhile warning persons. DCOP Gabriel Prince Wabo is Director of Research and Planning.
It was also with some sort of high peak, but things went on smoothly. So it tells you that we are not leaving any stone unturned, especially when it comes to the general elections. Things have been put in place. We are training.
Tell us about that, though, because I know the election security task force was set up way before now.
Yes.
What are the structures that you put in place to ensure that this year's elections is very secure?
To tell you the fact, sensitization is ongoing. We and the sister security, that is the prisons, the fire, immigration, all are on the table. They all doing what they can do to finish. Training is ongoing, vigorous training, of course. Equipment have been gotten, and as at now, we still have even recruits under training, and all is geared towards 2024 elections. And I tell you what, officers of probably 300 are going to go to the college, and they will definitely pass out before 2024 elections. So these are some of the ways and then the measures that we have put in place to, see to it that 2024 election becomes a success. Hotspots. The whole country is a hotspot. So we are planning towards the whole country as a hotspot. We're leaving no stone unturned. And when it comes to like individual issues.
So that's your assurance there coming from the Ghana Police. But both the governing New Patriotic Party and the opposition NDC have committed to peace as this country prepares for the crucial 2024 election.
Uphold peaceful coexistence, peaceful elections to ensure there is peaceful governance after victory for the 2024 general elections. The NPP pledges to ensure that there is peaceful, will contribute our quota to peaceful elections and contribute our quota to peaceful coexistence.
The NDC is a rallying point for the poor people, the relegated in our society. But we have actually been with the people. And governance is about managing people, putting food on the table of Ghanaians, relieving Ghanaians of hardship and burdens. It's about survival. This is our country, and we must live in it peacefully. And so you cannot have so without peace. On behalf of the General Secretary of the NDC, Honorable Fifi Javi Kote, on behalf of the National Chairman, Johnson Asedun Ketia, and our flag bearer, who is going to be sworn in as president, the NDC represent peace. We stand for peace. We will be the stakeholders to champion peace into the 2025 election. Mustafa Bandi, the chief bodyguard of the General Secretary of the NDC, Honorable Fifi Jarikote, as his deputy. I stand for peace before, during, and after 2024 election.
Well, former presidential candidate of the Convention People's Party, Ivor Greenstreet, criticized both the NPP and the NDC for what he says is their abysmal performance in the management of the Ghanaian economy.
The state of the nation, if you look at the ordinary conditions of the large majority of the people of Ghana, it is nothing but great difficulty and suffering for them. I think that the cost of living and the crisis that people are facing in their day-to-day lives, I'm sure is very overwhelming, and they're all carrying a huge burden on their day-to-day lives. And you don't get a sense that those in authority seem to care sufficiently about their condition. They claim to care, and they make statements that would imply that they care, but their actions and the facts that are obvious for everybody to see should demonstrate to them that all is not well with the state of the nation. They will claim that it's due to external forces or other reasons, and they will give us their usual platitudes and long stories. But if you look at things critically, and which is why election headquarters is important, to offer that space for people to take a close look at really what is going on and not be deceived by lies and not be deceived by sloganeering, which is what we have been witnessing for the last 30 or so years of the Fourth Republic, when really what you can see is that actually election headquarters can contribute to the emancipation of the long-suffering Ghanaian.
And our coverage of the election is about you. You were not left out. Some Ghanaians, including the Queen Mother of the Market Women Association in Accra, they've also been sharing their thoughts ahead of the 2024 elections.
Have proper car parks. We should have educational system in the market, health system in the market, fire service in the market, police in the market.
You have fire service at Makola?
Yes, but not all the markets. We have lots of markets that will have to run about 2 miles before they get to fire service. They should be with us.
Growing up as a youth in Ghana, so far the successive government and then the former government haven't met my expectations yet. Honestly, when you take issues of sanitation, that's my background. Let me start from there. When you take issues of sanitation, you come to the center of Ghana, which is Accra. As at 9 a.m., you see traffic, thinking that maybe there's a truck which is being causing the traffic. But you realize that you go and then there are huge sums of waste left. It can be 2 days, 3 days, and then this waste is causing traffic. Meanwhile, the government has contracted people, institutions to be dealing with sanitations in Accra. And then they neglect it. The government or the various stakeholders who are responsible to be checking all those things do not give an ear to it.
I'm expecting the government to do more infrastructure on the education system, because there are so much complaints about the education. And also, I'll talk about job. They should also create jobs for the youth so that the unemployed should be less.
By the businesses, first, we know most of our imports, most of our goods are imported from outside. So we want the stabilization of the dollar. The dollar must be stabilized so that we can make forecasts and programs as far as business is concerned. Because as it is now, you can't program anything. Today the dollar is 12.5, the next day is 13, the next day is 13.5. So it makes planning difficult as far as business is concerned. So we're expecting a stable dollar. And in doing so, we want the government to make sure that we reduce the imports to the barest minimum as far as most of the things like food importation is concerned. We have an arable land which can produce enough for us, but we've been so much lazy over the years as far as ideas are concerned concerning agriculture. So this time around, we want well-thought agricultural programs where land acquisition may be easy for anybody who wants to embark on commercial farming. so that we can farm in large quantities to produce enough for us than importing onions, tomatoes, kotomre, and everything from outside country. It's not helping us. So we want well-thought programs, that achievable ones, that will help this country. Irrigation must be a priority, and large-scale farming must be a priority. Cheap loans to farmers must be a priority. Sales, as far as marketing of the farm products, preservation of the product, all these things must be well thought and programs well tailored for it, so that it won't be just rhetorics and slogans that doesn't achieve anything.
So it's time to explore the issues put forth by both the NDC, NPP, and of course the Deputy Chair of the Electoral Commission, and of course also heard from the police, but also keeping an eye on this major meeting, crucial meeting happening at the Alisa Hotel. The Council of the NPP and the National Committee Council, the Executive Committee of the NPP, these two very important, powerful committees are meeting. President Akufo-Addo, the Vice President, the leadership of the party are there. Now we are being told to expect a very big announcement from this meeting. Is Dr. Bawumia ready to name his running mate for election 2024? Who is going to make it to the list of the campaign team for Dr. Bawumia? My man, Samuel Mbura, is there, and very soon I'll take you live to the Alisa Hotel to bring you the very latest as the Council of the NPP and, of course, the National Executive Committee of the party meets to decide on the running mate and the composition of the campaign team for the NPP going into election 2024. But let's explore the issues put forth by the Electoral Commission, the police, the various political parties, and, of course, you. On the line right now is Albert Kofi Ahim, National Coordinator, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, and of course on Zoom, Professor Kobe Mensah, Political Marketing Strategist and Lecturer, University of Ghana. Let me start with you, Mr. Ahen. Good afternoon, welcome to the Pulse.
No, my brother.
Right, so we heard from the Electoral Commission today. They are very emphatic. The 2024 elections will take place on December 7. Does that, bring to an end this hula baloo about date and whether it is the best way to go?
Yes, that's okay. I'm saying it's okay in the sense, yeah, Robert, what I'm saying is that, yes, if they have listened to the voice of the people, and especially the NDC, and they decided to bring it back to the 7th of December, that is very okay. But I'm happy, very happy about the fact that when the NDC staff was talking, he said they will set the ball rolling. That is, they're going to start the process. So that come 2028, they will be going back to the diplomatic, which I think is a good idea. It's the same wish that the IPAC had at the time that we met. They were saying that if it was too late to let it move or for the process to start this year, then we should start slowly so that we can get to Parliament, the law is passed, and then it can be used later. It will be in the interest of everybody, all the stakeholders, both the political parties and the Electoral Commission especially, so that the incoming government will have more time to prepare for the handing over. I think it's a good idea.
So for you, Mr. Ahen, you support the November 7 dates for future elections?
Oh, yes, I do support it, to be honest with you, because this thing was started long ago. But for some things that happened in 2015, it should have been used by now. But it's not too late yet. If it's going to be done in 2028, I think it's a good idea. So it's good that the ball is they should start rolling it now. And by 2028, if it's finalized, then of course the country benefits.
But was timing the only challenge to having it in 2024? Because, this has been on the books for over 15 years.
Yes, to be honest with you, if they wanted to do it, they could have done it this year. You see, because it's the last time that they started it. It was way back. I think this one was it's actually in February or March.
Right.
The last one was, I think, August or something like that. So if they really wanted to let it work, they could have made it to work. The only thing was maybe Parliament to have expedited action on it so it could come to fruition. But don't worry, nevertheless, if they want it to be done in 2028, the only important thing is that the process should be started. Once the process gets started and we get it in 2028, everybody will be fine.
But you have been involved in election management before. Tell me, how difficult or challenging is it to hold a runoff between December and January?
Yes, I'm sure you'll be thinking about the fact that if there's going to be a runoff, then the EC should have prepared. The EC normally prepares. They prepare for in case of a runoff. They will definitely always do that. But you see, the time between December and January, where you have to organize an election and hand over for the next government, I think it's always in a rush. It's in a rush in the sense that the EC needs to prepare adequately. The parties themselves also need time to do some campaigning and so forth and so on. So if it's done in November 7th or whatever date, I'm sure all the parties, all the stakeholders will be able to prepare adequately, and there will be more time for the outgoing government to write their handover notes, for people to take over and so forth and so on. And I think that is the ideal situation.
All right. Hold on for me. Let me bring in Professor Kobe Mensah, political marketing strategist and lecturer with the University of Ghana Business School. Professor Mensah, your initial comments on the finality brought to the election date for 2024. The EC says it will be held in December. Do you welcome it? Professor Mensah, yes, please go on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it puts every stakeholder at ease because obviously the initial reaction by people who did not accept actually made the position that, yes, people haven't been informed about this. It was coming too late in terms of a strategic decision. And so people were concerned about the little time that they perhaps had, and of course, the seeming, not having that kind of conversation, going and all of a sudden saying that you want it to be done in a certain manner. I think that's what, a lot of people were against it. But of course, if there's going to be chance for consultation and then, of course, everybody to come to that understanding, then of course, I welcome that.
But so in future, you also support that we bring the date to November instead of December, so that in the event of a runoff, we have adequate time to prepare and execute it properly.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it would allow us space to actually kind of simulate the November idea, because obviously now that they've shifted it to next time, we'll be able to evaluate it properly. We'll be able to come out with reasons to support or not to support that particular idea.
We are yet to be told of the EC's plan for election 2024. From where you sit as a political marketer, should the political parties be worried because there's no clear-cut details as to timelines, as to when to do what and when to execute what ahead of 2024?
Well, I'm not sure the kind of activities the EC must undertake in order for 2024 to happen. I mean, if most of especially the logistics, have actually been secured, I'm not sure that there should be any room for worry. But of course, it depends. If the EC have some kind of crucial time-bound, activities to undertake, and they still haven't done so yet, then of course you would actually say that there's a cause for worry. But I'm sure they probably have all that it takes. Just about sort of assembling them and putting them together, and then of course doing the necessary arrangement for 2024 to happen. But of course, we need to know the detail. What are the activities that they must embark on?
Right.
And what are time pressed on that?
I'll come back to ask you about your expectation and also listening to the expectations of Ghanaians. I mean, the economy appears to be the main issue going into 2024. But let me bring it again, Mr. Ahin, why would the EC even contemplate phasing out the indelible ink?
I'm sure was thinking about the fact that by having our biometric items there, it was a duplication. I agree with them to a point. But if you hear we are where sometimes the machines that we use in working, in checking these things, many a time you go to the police and the machine will not even work. And so the indelible ink always remains as the last point of check. So I think it's a good idea if they have brought it back. In the first place, the consultation wasn't properly done. The consultation wasn't done because the stakeholders were just, looking unaware. But I agree with them that it's a duplication. But in our circumstances, because of the fact that some of these machines sometimes break down, I think the indelible ink being used as a backup is a good idea. So I will praise them for being a listening EC, for coming back to the old idea of using the indelible ink. I think they have listened to the people, because when it was announced at the IPAC, I'm sure I was there and the parties were not happy about it.
And also the case that not everyone has access to the Ghana card.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
But you, yes, please go on.
No, you ask the question.
Yes, I was going to ask, you attend IPAC meeting. Do you see cordiality in terms of cooperation and support between the Electoral Commission and the political parties as we look forward to 2024? There's been issues about when is the Electoral Commission going to put forth its plan of activities from now to December.
Yes, you know what? This idea of holding the election on November 7th, the hula baloo, the problems that came with it, actually was coming out of the fact that the EC hadn't brought out the timetable. If the EC had clearly come out with a timetable and then showed everybody the timeline, I'm sure it would have been able to convince a lot of people that, okay, now we are saying that we have also drawn our programs, but the EC's program is such that we'll be able to accomplish this. We can go to Parliament and get this thing passed before the time. But you see, we were just talking in darkness because the timetable itself wasn't around. If the timetable had been, have been issued or had been brought up, I'm sure it would have settled matters. So the EC itself didn't come out with a timetable, and that I'm sure was a problem because the parties were insisting that they have had their programs drawn, and they wouldn't want anybody to interrupt with their program. That is why this thing initially was even rejected.
But Mr. Ahin, we are in February. Is the EC within its own luxury of time to put forward the timetable, or you think time is running out and that there must be some sign of urgency on the part of the EC?
To be honest with you, I'm sure the timetable is ready because they gave an indication that they will even be sending the timetable to the various stakeholders online so that everybody will look at it. I'm sure at the time that we met, the last time we met, they were putting finishing touches to the timetable or the timeline. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of these days we even see it in our other emails or WhatsApp or whatever. So that would settle. I'm sure, I heard one of the EC big men saying that they are ready, they are prepared, and I want to take his word for it. You cannot tell the whole Ghana that you are ready when you are not. So the word that came out of his mouth is suggesting that I'm sure they have put actions in motion. For example, it will mean that they've ordered almost all their overseas materials. There are some materials that you have to order from abroad, like the indelible ink and so forth and so on. This is the time to order them. So if you haven't ordered those things now, you cannot say that you are getting ready. So from what he said, I'm sure Ghanaians will be convinced now that at least they are ready, and the timetable will also be coming out to support it.
I'll come back to you to ask about security, as we have been assured by the police that they will designate every polling center as a flashpoint. Let me bring in Dr. Kobe Mensah, Professor Kobe Mensah. Prof, I mean, when we allow people to speak to our microphones, their standard of living and the general economic climate in the country was one of the key issues that they brought forth. Do you, from where you sit, do you see it as a key determinant in the 2024 elections outcome?
Of course, I mean, for so many years, that has been our main issue. Obviously, it does not say that we do not have other problems. But you see, when you look at people's needs, majority of times we say that the basic need is the most important. Not that the others are not important, but when people don't have what to eat, other issues, though present, become secondary. And so you ask yourself, why is it that over and over so many years, we are still at the basic needs of human beings? It definitely tells you that we haven't actually gotten the kind of development we expect to get from what we call the dividend democracy. We have reduced our democracy to a procedural one. Every time we go and vote for politicians to come in, they better themselves, but a lot of the people aren't bettered. So suddenly, the idea that every year or every electoral cycle, you go around, collect views, and it looks like people are still talking about basic needs, what they will eat, what they will drink. It gives you an indication that our politicians have failed completely. And so I'm not surprised. In other countries where the basic needs have been fulfilled, they talk about issues like human rights. They talk about issues like maybe a death penalty, etc. Why is it that some of these issues aren't the most important or aren't the most regularly cited by voters? It means that the basic needs haven't even been met. Yet our politicians are always telling us that we have developed or we are in the process of developing. Over the years since we started this Fourth Republic, every year the economic issues have topped. We haven't gone anywhere.
Right, but again, so who best is addressing the very needs of the Ghanaian voter? We've heard of 24-hour economy. We've heard of digitalization and other issues that will help propel the Ghanaian economy to a height that will benefit everybody. Who is best addressing the needs of the Ghanaian voter?
Well, I think that let me say that this the kind of the note that was put on what I just said on your screen is incorrect. We haven't had the dividend democracy. That's what I'm saying. We haven't gone past the procedural one. So let them correct it.
Right.
And yes, exactly the point. Who is actually supposed to address the issues of the voter? Of course, it's the politician. They have that particular singular profession. All of us, of course, are contributing into a certain fund called taxes. We're giving all our money. So if you look at the political structure, simply put, every one of us are putting our resources together and giving it into the hands of a politician to say, address our issues in a collective manner, all right? Otherwise, you would have said that we don't pay any taxes. Each of us, when we make our money, we should use it to take care of ourselves. But you said that there is a certain, structure that is best for society. Politics will do collective, savings. And then when you collect that money, you would go ahead to actually solve our problems. What do we see now? We're not seeing anything. Meanwhile, the politicians keep on blaming other people and asking other people to fix themselves. It's absolutely not acceptable. The politician is the one who had actually put themselves forward to say that I would be the legwork, I would do the legwork for your livelihood to be sustainable, for you to have a better livelihood. And that's why we collect the money and we give it to you.
So I ask you, we are waiting to hear the campaign manifestos of the two parties, but even ahead of that, they've made pronouncements. And I ask, who is best addressing the concerns raised by the ordinary Ghanaian?
Nobody seems to be, doing it. And as I said, not that other professions have that responsibility. I mean, I have chosen a certain pathway of making sure that someone's child would be enlightened in a particular manner, that they can be responsible for themselves. You have decided that you want to be someone in between the politician and the voters, so that you could actually bring issues of national interest at the fore. Of course, that's what you're doing. The politician is supposed to address the welfare of the people. And that's why, we take them, or we say that they are responsible for the one.
Right.
They are the ones who are supposed to be responsible for what concerns the voter. But they haven't actually addressed that.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Kobe-Mensah. Let me pick the final talks from Mr. Ahin. Mr. Ahin, you heard the police give assurance that they will treat every polling center as a flashpoint. Does that give you confidence that we probably will reduce violence to the barest minimum in 2024?
Well, that is very interesting. Yes, I heard DCOP Wabu talk about the fact that they are going to take the whole country as a hotspot. That tells you how serious maybe they want to be, or how they would want to tackle the incident of violence and whatever. Yes, I know it is good to take the whole country as a hotspot, but I know very well also that they would want to go into the constituencies, and there are traditional hotspots again there. That is where I would want them to concentrate. In this country, there are some areas where every time there's an election, or some constituencies, some police stations, where troubles normally loom. And I hope they are going to narrow down or zero in on these areas and give it more attention so that it will prevent any calamity, any trouble from coming up. But I like his seriousness, the fact that he would want to take the whole nation as a hotspot. If I got him right, that tells me that they are very serious and they would want to take everything with regards to security very serious.
Right. Let me appreciate you, gentlemen, this afternoon for your time on the pulse. Albert Kofi Ahin, National Coordinator, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, and of course, Professor Kobe-Mensah, Political Marketing Strategist and Lecturer, University of Ghana Business. We thank you very much for your time this afternoon on the pulse. This is your election headquarters, and now let me take you live to the Lisa Hotel, where Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is presenting his campaign team to the National Executive Committee and the National Council of the governing NPP for consideration and approval. The list, according to joining sources, was arrived at after a broader consultation with different organs of the party, expected to reflect the philosophy, strategy, and focus of the NPP 2024 campaign. Let me take you live now because my colleague Samuel Imbura joins me from the Lisa Hotel where the event is taking place. Imbura, a few minutes ago, we witnessed the arrival of President Akufo-Addo. The Vice President came in early. What can you report from the venue? Is the meeting over? Is there any, resolution passed by both organs of the party?
Alton, it's going to be a long day for us here at the Alisa Hotel. We know mostly the National Executive Committee would meet first to deliberate on issues bordering the party. They would review reports from recent activities, and we know the recent activities of the party has to do with the conduct of elections from constituencies with sitting MPs. So the General Secretary would present all that, and that will be done by his deputy before the committee. They will review all those issues and then iron them out and then come together with a recommendation for the National Council to accept or make amends to that. Now, at the moment, the National Executive Committee has just started. As you indicated, the president arrived some 10 minutes ago. And I must say, it is because of the president that the meeting, which was initially scheduled to start at 10 a.m. today, was rescheduled to 2 p.m. and it has just started. So we don't know the time frame this meeting of the National Executive Committee would end, but I can say mostly with the previous meetings, they can last up to 2 hours. with their deliberations before they can now go for the National Council meeting, which is the final one. And we know the National Council is the second highest decision-making body of the party. So the NEC meeting has started, but what we know is that the critical issues are, one, the reports that they are to consider from the just ended election. Two, they would deal with issues that have to do with the list that the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud, is presenting. So we know names are already flying out. Many people, names are coming out strongly, in which we shared earlier on our previous bulletin. But let me just recap our minds. We have the likes of Dan Boche coming up as the chairman of the campaign team. That's the name that is strongly coming up. Also have names like Samir Uku. We have Peter McMahon. We have Fred Owari. We also have the former communications director, Adomako Beifi. Miracles Abuaje, who is a presidential staffer, his name has also come up. Abeifa Kabo, his name is also there. We are still waiting. These are the names coming up shortly, but we are waiting for the final confirmation from both NEC and the National Council. But what I can say for now is that the deliberations have just started, and these are the key issues that they are dealing with, coupling the changes that Parliament is likely to witness. If you recall, 3 hours ago, the Deputy General Secretary, Haruna Mohammed, when he appeared before the election headquarters launch, he said that we should expect a big announcement. So the big announcement I am learning now has to do with the changes that will happen in Parliament and also the list from the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Matter of the composition of the campaign team for the Vice President, who is also the flag bearer of the NPP, I don't expect to see controversy there. Perhaps it should go without any kind of hesitation. The approval should come. Did you get a sense that perhaps the Vice President may also submit the name of his running mate? Because remember that at the last NEC meeting, he asked for some time to do further consultation. Is he ready now? Did you get a sense that that may also come up?
Well, Elton, I have not picked that information, but I had an interview with Nana Komia, who is a critical member of the Bawumia campaign team, and that's about 2 weeks ago. The point he made was that the Vice President is still scouting and considering the running mate. So when I came here, I didn't actually pick that information that the running mate would be announced, but anything can happen. I mean, there are last-minute decisions that could be taken, but that cannot be ruled out. Since the Deputy General Secretary is saying that we should expect a big announcement, then the running mate or the hint of a running mate cannot be left out at all. We should, or we can be expecting a surprise from this meeting, aside the names that the Vice President will be presenting before the National Executive Committee and National Council. I must say that the environment here doesn't show of any agitation. There is no resistance with the names that they've heard so far. It appears everyone is waiting patiently to hear the official confirmation, and then they can move forward. Before the arrival of these names, I know that there were several meetings that were held previously, engagements were made, and these names, as we have been told, will represent the philosophy of the NPP. They are coming from various divides, the Dankwa, Buzia, and Dombo. So we shouldn't expect any hesitation or any agitation from any of the cortesses yet, and that is not what I'm picking on the grounds either.
My sources and what I picked from Parliament, the composition of the front bench of the NPP is also a matter that NEC will have to take a decision on together with Council. And because the Deputy Majority Whip has now been named or has been nominated for a ministerial position, there's therefore the need for the party to do some reshuffle at the front bench in Parliament. And what I'm picking is that Oseche Mensah Bonsu, who is the current majority leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, will be replaced by Alexander Fenyomakem, the Deputy Majority Leader. He will now move to occupy the position of Majority Leader in Parliament. Now, there's no immediate indication as to whether the Swami MP, Oseche Mensah Bonsu, his role, what we are picking is that he may be named as the chairperson of the party's 2024 manifesto committee. And then that will lead to some kind of realignment on the majority front. What is clear, however, is that Frank Anodompe, if Afenyomarken is made a majority leader, Frank Anodompe, the member of parliament for Nsawam Aduadjiri, will move from majority chief whip to become the deputy majority leader. That is the information we are picking. And then the majority chief whip, Idris Habib, we are told, the deputy will now move to become the majority chief, the deputy. The member of parliament for Asqua in the Ashanti region, Patricia Piaget, has also been named to become a deputy whip. Are these the same names you are picking at the Alisa Hotel?
Exactly, Elton. Your sources, I mean, I must say, what I'm gathering is not actually different from what I have gathered here. I mean, all things being equal, these are the changes that we are likely to see, unless there is a last-minute decision to what we have gathered and what you have shared with us. In fact, I've seen the Honorable MP for Tolon, Habib Idris, a couple of minutes ago, and then he has joined the team. I haven't seen Oseche Mensah Bonsu. I don't know if he used other other gates to enter into the hall, but I haven't seen him here. I haven't also seen Afenyomarken around. But I must say, all that you have shared with our audience is the near truth. We are only waiting for the confirmation from the party and the official announcement that will be shared with the media.
Thank you very much, Imbura, and I'm sure that we'll come to you when we have a development from the Alisa Hotel. Two key meetings happening, the National Executive Committee meeting and the National Council. These are two very powerful organs of the party, and we'll take you back to the Alisa Hotel if there is a development. But let's stay a little longer with the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baba, because in order to ensure effective revenue mobilization by the state-owned Metro Mass Transit, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has launched a single transport card for paying for the services of the company. The Tap and Go, Dr. Bawumia says, the new technology, which among others, enable users to book their tickets from the comfort of their homes and ensure easy identification of persons on board is part of the government's agenda to digitalize the country's transport sector.
We are also going to have a feature of Tap and Go where you can book and buy your ticket from home before you board the bus. Before you board the bus, you don't have to come and stand in a queue. You sit in your room whilst you are watching TV. You buy your bus ticket, book it, and come and travel when you want to travel. Ladies and gentlemen, with today's launch of the Tap and Go for Metrobus intercity services, we are moving into a new digitalized public transport system where our journeys begin with a simple tap, where every seat on the bus is just a click away, where the hassle of cash transactions fades into oblivion, where there will be transparency between car owners, drivers, and mates, and more importantly, where there will not necessarily be the need to carry cash to access public transport. What is clear is that the Tap and Go card, you can top it up with your Momo account, put money from your Momo account onto the Tap and Go card. And when your Momo account is low and you have money on your Tap and Go card, you can transfer money from your Tap and Go card to your Momo account. So what we are doing is not a distant dream. It is our reality. With the Tap and Go system, the problem of diversion of funds within state-owned intra- and intercity buses will also be a thing of the past, as the system will help check corruption by promoting transparency. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that before the tap and go system was implemented by Metro Mass Transit, the audit report showed that Metro Mass Transit was losing 50% of its revenue annually. 50%. So there was a chamber in operation. Right? You get the fee, you take half and give half to government. But since the tap and go was implemented by Metro Mass Transit, you have seen that that leakage has been plugged. And today, revenue that Metro Mass Transit is making on the intercity routes from 200 or so buses is more than the revenue it was making from 500 buses before. 200 buses is giving us more revenue than 500 buses. It tells you there was a major leakage. And this leakage was threatening the very survival of Metro Mass Transit. You will know that there was not even money to pay for many needs of Metro Mass Transit. And workers in Metro Mass were being threatened with layoffs because of the losses that were being incurred by the company. So what we are seeing with the introduction of tap and go is that the revenues that come through tapping and going, the revenues go directly into the bank account. So the banks themselves can now be willing to provide financing for new buses because they know that the repayments to whatever loans they provide for the buses will be made from the bank accounts.
You're watching The Pulse with me, Elton Brobe. We take a short break. We shall be back. Well, several decades down the line, his fear is manifesting in its strongest form. There is a strong struggle for the continent with China, Russia, and other countries pushing their influence through various means. Shortly, we'll be joined by experts in this area for a discussion on this. First, though, let me tell you how the continent is suffering at the hands of these foreign powers, both individually and collectively. Member states do not pay their yearly contribution to the Africa Union. Now, again, 2/3 of the AU's 2023 budget is drawn from external sources, mainly from the EU, that's the European Union. In 2020, let's say from 2020, member states, partner funds, so member states contributed 46% to the budget of the AU. External funding constituted 54%. In 2021, member states' contribution reduced from 46% in 2022 to 37% in 2021. External support rose from 54% to 62%, meaning EU and other partners were paying more for the sustenance of the African Union than Africans themselves. And then in 2022, the external support maintained at 62%, whilst member states' contribution came down to 36%, and then other sources that contributed to the funding or the budget of the AU constituted 2%. 16 countries have been imposing a 0.2 levy on eligible imports in order to meet their financial obligations to the African Union. And of course, China's share of total sub-Saharan Africa external public debt has risen from 2% before 2005 to about 17% in 2021. China is now the largest bilateral official lender to countries in sub-Saharan Africa. The Wagner Group, that is a militia wing operating in Russia or has its headquarters in Russia, operates in 12 African countries so far. So this is a stark reality of the issues, relating to the African Union. And of course, Africa in itself. So is it a bad picture, or can we do better to win ourselves from external support? Joining us for a discussion on this matter is Dr. Yao Graham. Dr. Yao Graham is with the Third World Network, and of course, Dr. Ishmael Global, Internal Relations Analyst. We'll also be joined by Emmanuel Bansa Jr. for a conversation on this matter. Let me start with you, Dr. Graham. So the African Union, as we have it, is supposed to be an umbrella body championing all other matters, including economic emancipation, is fully funded by external sources, the EU and the others. So basically, in terms of our own structures, we haven't done enough to stand on our own. How bad is it after years of fighting for this single goal?
Well, I mean, I think that phenomenon is not it's not due to external forces. It's a failure of leadership by African leaders. Because if you look at the way public resources are spent in our countries, Ghana here, since the debt crisis and even before, a lot of discussions about corruption and misallocation of resources and so on. So not paying up to the AU has nothing to do with external sources. That is just a simple failure of our leaders in terms of having the priorities that matter for the advancement of the continent.
So what really is the problem here?
A lack of commitment to an African project. Because if you look again at the priorities people set in country, it is very narrowly defined around regime survival, and there is not a dominant interest of a public interest. The striking thing about Nkrumah when we talk about him and Pan-Africanism is also how the concern for the continent's development was reflected also in what was done domestically. Because whilst Nkrumah was supporting Guinea so that the country would not collapse after the French, pulled out, ripped the phones out of the walls because Guinea would not remain a neo-colony. Nkrumah gave them money to help them support, to survive, which of course the United Party and it's a military allies denounced as a waste of Ghana's resources. Domestically, we continue to talk about the development vision that Nkrumah had for the country. And if you go around the continent, you find similar leaders who are committed to the African project. So in the same way that Nkrumah, for example, supported the national liberation movement, and also defended African interests in international fora, as well as tried to move Ghana forward, and attracted the wrath, of the ex-colonial and neo-imperialist powers, the US and its allies in NATO. In the same way, people like Nyerere made their countries available to provide support for the national liberation movement and defend African interests globally. And if you go back to Tanzania, people remember Nyerere as a nation builder. So those things matter. What you do at home also usually is reflected in your commitment. And not being able to pay dues to the African Union really is a disgrace as far as African leadership is concerned.
Do you think that perhaps the commentary back then was a bit premature in terms of making it sound like Africa was more than ready to stand on its own?
Well, I mean, Africa, it's not about ready. Does Africa need to integrate? And I think let's not confuse the number. I think there's a conflation of points there. At no point did Nkrumah and people who talk about Pan-Africanism see it in terms of autarky, that is being closed off and wholly self-reliant. Africa has to take its place in the world, benefit from the stock of human knowledge, benefit from access to markets, benefit from investments, but these must be done on terms which primarily advance the interest of Africa and its people. Now, regional integration has been an issue because the irrationalities of the boundaries of our countries suited the colonial powers, because their project was not about Africa's development, but which piece of the continent can we get to take resources out? Which piece can we get in which we can create markets for our goods? But when you have independence and you have a thin sliver of land called Togo and a huge desert called Niger, I mean, and a huge subcontinent area, Nigeria, there's an irrationality there. So a West Africa region as an integrated area, Africa as a single market, offers possibilities for development in terms of market, aggregation of resources, joint investment and so on, which are just not feasible in the fragmentation. So African integration as a step in optimizing the resources of the continent for its people, it's an element of Africa being able to develop itself in the context of a world which is moving on and we also move on. So the standing on one's own is not the issue. How do we strengthen ourselves and be more effective in our development and also be able to deal more equally with the world at large, and also therefore more protected against the intrusion and manipulation of foreign powers? That way, of course, then you are more robust and able to stand on your own in the sense that you are economically stronger, you are politically stronger, but not to mean that standing on your own in terms of having an autarkic economy which has no connection to the rest of the world.
Let me bring in Dr. Ishmael Ulovo. He's an international relations analyst. Dr. Ulovo, so for some, I mean, we are just beating ourselves too much. We live in a global village where the superpower will always have dominance over those that are struggling to keep their eyes above water. And we should accept the fact that that is what has become the status quo. Is this something that we should accept, or we can do more to improve our situation?
Good afternoon, and then good afternoon to your viewers. I think that is a defeatist position to take. In as much as the world is populated by superpowers who always seek their interests, small powers also find a way to kind of defend their own interests. In Africa, the power we have is the ability to act as one. If we speak with one voice, then we have the power to shape the world. But unfortunately, we have many of our leaders whose agenda is not actually development. They are pursuing other agendas. So in the first place, sometimes it's so difficult to discuss development in Africa because some of the leaders don't have development as a core agenda. So if you have a situation where some of the leaders are virtually being put in place by the superpowers, it's very difficult for you to pursue a common goal and a common agenda. So what is lacking in Africa is the fact that we need a common voice to speak for us. We need to act in unison. None of the African states on its own is able to take on any superpower and win a battle. But if you act as one, then you will be able to negotiate the deals and have a better deals for your people. For instance, if we talk about the natural resource deals that we have signed over the years, which virtually mortgage our resources to external powers and give us very little. If you are acting as a collective, where we have control over all those resources as a unit, we are in a better position to do that. Unfortunately, some of the leaders are pursuing other interests apart from the interests of Africa. And that has been the problem, because even the independent leaders who meant well for Africa from the plans they had and so forth, they were undermined by people who were virtually sponsored by the colonialists to undermine us. So what it is now is that Africa have to recognize that if we continue to pursue the individual state-led agenda, where every country thinks that I am better off than another country, therefore I'm pursuing some development agenda without the others. So your policy must necessarily be linked with the policy of other states, so that collectively you want to get out as a region, because that is where your power lies. That is where your influence in international relations or international politics lies. It doesn't lie in you being a single country, because by your economy, by other indicators, you are too weak to withstand the nature of the global geopolitics and all that is happening around you. So Africa has the strength in the numbers. Africa has the strength in unity. That is the only way to get out of all the problems that we are facing. But then again, the unity has been a problem because of the lack of political will for leaders to surrender so-called sovereignty to the larger interests of Africa. So I believe that the only way Africa will make a statement, will escape the manipulation of the bigger powers, is if African leaders recognize that the development of Africa is their core interest, and that to do that, they need other African nations to act like one. They need other African nations to act in unison. Then they could be able to navigate the current geopolitical terrain.
Has this famous quote when, especially, he is speaking to African leaders, and he always make reference to the fact that Africa, the continent, controls 30% of the world's natural resources, yet we are unable to monetize it to our advantage. What can be done? I mean, Dr. Robo.
That's a problem of resource governance, in the sense that you have not put in place the needed regulatory framework to manage your resources to your own advantage. You are competing among each other for investors whose interest is to exploit you. So unless you are able to put in place governance regimes that allow you to tap into those resources and translate them into wealth, then you will continue to have the resource, but you will not have the effect of development. Because as it is now, various African countries are producing the same or similar natural resources, yet they are having different agreements with various investors. And therefore, the investors are so lucky to play you against one another. So if they come and your framework looks like it's not benefit them that much, they leave to another country. So whereas look at Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. For a very long time, two of us have depended on cocoa. But we don't have a common way of marketing our cocoa, so we end up competing with one another. To the extent that even in our various countries, we smuggle the cocoa to where we think that the prices are better for the farmers. Because we are not acting as one. If you act as one...
Yes, I was just helping the point that even now we are being told that Ghana cocoa beans is smuggled to places like Togo and Burkina Faso, and they are exporting cocoa, yet they don't grow cocoa there.
Yes, so you can see that among ourselves, we are competing instead of cooperating. So if you pursue this level, then it is easier for any external power to take advantage. Because if I come to Ghana to have a deal in terms of cocoa, and I feel like the deal is not favorable to me, there's a next door neighbor who is ready to give me a better deal. I go there. But if you act as one, then you are able to protect the resource you have. You are able to negotiate deals that give the best to your people. But again, the interest of those who are negotiating some of these deals is not the interest of the people they are governing. It's the interest of sometimes the superpower that support them and put them there. It is the interest of sometimes their own finances. They want to live in affluence and all manner of things. So therefore, any deal that gives them what they perceive is in their interest is accepted. And of course, any deal that gives them the chance to put some road in some corner and put something that will help them win an election become acceptable, because it is not the long-term development of the nation that is at stake here. All they are looking for is political power and how to maintain the power. And if policies are designed to take power and maintain power, development cannot be attained, because you need long-term sacrifice. Because some of the policies you pursue in the path to development may be very, very painful initially. But how do you mobilize your people to understand that some of these policies in the long run will benefit them? That is very important to African nations. But as it is now, the framework we have, which are bequeathed to us by the colonialists, is essentially designed for keeping us the way we are. Because if you look at it, from the borders that we have, which are virtually designed somewhere else, sat down and three borders, which have no ethnic rationality, they have no economic rationality, and we keep hold of these borders. We want to develop within the framework of these borders. Our economies under colonialism were developed to facilitate the development of the advanced nation. So if we maintain this structure, if we maintain the way they have divided us and make sure that we develop in the way that only enhance their development, then we'll always remain where we want to be. The most important is to realize that no, our bread is buttered when we come together and try to change the dynamics of what we have been given from independence. And it doesn't lie in leaders who are pursuing personal agendas, who are focused so much on the next election that even policies that they know that pursuing that policy will run us into economic difficulties after the election. But they are ready to do it so that in the next election, they win the power, and then they think of what to do next. So sometimes some come to power promising so many things, knowing that those sort of policies will run into economic difficulty, but they believe that, well, you have to have the power. So once they get the power, then they now struggle around to manage it until a certain time, and it continues like that. So we need to have the plans, like the Nkrumahs and like the others who have a long-term vision and plan. If we don't pursue it like that, you will go on cycle. If you look at going to IMF, and we have gone in cycle. We go, come back, manage it for 4 years, we go back, because we are not addressing the fundamentals of what is wrong with the economy. You are virtually pursuing the same policies that keep on impoverishing your people and yourself. So we need to get out of that. We need to unite as a continent, better manage our resources, try and negotiate deals that better the life of our people. Places like Obuasi should not have exported gold for so long and remain at the state in which they are, because in negotiating some of these deals, the development of the local area have to be at the heart of the deals that we are negotiating.
All right, Dr. hold it there for me. Let me bring in Dr. Yao Graham. So, Dr. Graham, leadership is key in here, because if you have studied the history of the African Union, they've always come up with measures to deal with the very challenges that we are talking about. Even currently, we have the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, which is supposed to address some of these issues, ensure that there's trading among the member countries, so that the money stays here. I mean, beautiful on paper. Even yesterday, President Akufo-Addo was talking about the fact that member states must come together to adopt the mobile money interoperability. So the plan has always been there. It's the case that we have dysfunctional leaders pursuing an agenda that is expected to bring about growth and economic freedom.
I think there is, at the very least, a rhetorical commitment among African leaders to integration. But I also think that in looking at the policies proposed by the African Union, we should also analyze, some of the specifics of some of these policies. Because, the European Union and others are not putting money into the African Union simply because they love African integration. We have been paying a price for the support that these bodies give to our regional integration structures. And it is reflected also, therefore, in how, in some key areas, the African Union is seen wanting. Let me take a very contemporary example. The leadership of the African Union Commission decided to give an observer status to Israel. This has become a huge controversy on the continent. Given what the ICJ has told us about the nature of what Israel is doing, Israel today is engaged in genocidal activities against the Palestinian people. Given our own anti-colonial history, how could we even be contemplating admitting Israel into an observer status in the AU? These are moments to show political courage. Israel is still being armed by the United States and the Europeans, even as they talk about Palestinian rights. There's a lot of pressure on African governments at times to support these things. Our own government issued a statement declaring support for Israel. Okay? Governments are under a lot of pressure, and people have to show courage. Even the design of the African Continental Free Trade Area, some of its limitations are due to the fact that we have signed some agreements already, which have constrained our policy space. For example, the economic partnership agreements that African governments signed with the European Union. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire broke with the rest of ECOWAS and signed a deal with the European Union, undermining regional integration in West Africa and laying a very low bar for the AFCFTA in terms of liberalization. This was because the Kufuor regime at the time felt that it should be on the right side of the Europeans in that context. And let me just make a related point. I mean, I've been struck by the fact that the data that you are presented about foreign influence,
right,
it's about Russia and China.
Right.
Actually, I think that's unfortunate because that's a huge misleading of your viewers and your listeners. Because the dominant powers when it comes to foreign investment in Africa are the United States and European countries. The country with the largest number of military agreements and bases in Africa is the United States and and its allies, including France and so on and so forth. The countries with the largest investment treaties with African countries are not Russia and China.
But you admit that we admit that their influence is growing gradually on the continent.
No. Of course, it's growing. All I'm saying is that all this conversation we are talking about, foreigners controlling the economy, neo-colonialism, and so on, we are talking about the fact that the ex-colonial powers remain the most influential in our countries. The biggest owners of the totality, the Chinese influence in mining is growing. Russia's reach out in Africa is growing. But in terms of diplomatic, economic, political, and ideological and military influence in Africa, we are talking about the West. It is precisely because people are anxious that China and Russia should not come and do to us what the West has been doing to us since the time of slavery. That's why people are concerned. So in having a conversation about foreign influence and dominance, it is important to paint a total picture.
Right.
The bulk of, this is, I'm just bringing this in.
Of course, sir.
I'm not holding brief for anybody, but I'm saying that the people who have been responsible for the mess on this continent as foreigners is the West. And we should name and shame them when President Akufo-Addo leaned across from Anthony Blinken and reported Burkina Faso, like a schoolboy talking to a head teacher, reported Burkina Faso as having Wagner troops in its countries. That symbolized the subservient relationship that we have with the United States. The US has access to military facilities in this country that even Ghanaians cannot enter. They are not accountable to us for their military presence. I'm just saying we should have perspective. Otherwise, we create an impression that the dominant powers who control our economies are Russia and China. There is a problem. We should be careful that Russia and China do not become as influential as the West is. If we are going to correct foreign dominance in Africa, is to make sure that China and Russia do not become as dominant as the West is, and make sure that we radically and substantially reduce the amount of influence that the West has in our countries.
Right. Dr. Glovo, you have a comment on that particular angle?
Yes. Unfortunately, Doc, it seems we have already gotten there, that they have virtually doing to us
what... they don't dominate our economies. They are actors, but they are not dominant.
They
are
virtually
the
doing
fact
to
that
us.
the dominant actors are the West. That's what I'm trying to underline.
Right.
What the West has been doing to us in terms of where their investments are going.
No, I'm saying the dominant actors, if we want to correct the power relations, the dominant actors are not the Russians and the Chinese, but the West.
Yes, of course they are not. But of course they are virtually approaching that because of the way some of our leaders are thinking. In the sense that in order to correct Western influence or Western dominance, then they think that going fully east, that is Russia, China, is an antidote to Western influence, which is not. In actual fact, the answer to that lies in the African unity or the Pan-Africanist agenda. Because if you look at the countries that have had major dealings with the Russians and the Chinese in the last few years, particularly those who have gone the way of military coups, they seem to have a strong anti-Western element to their coup, and to kind of reduce the Western influence, then they lean heavily towards the Eastern Bloc as if to say that the answer to the long-term influence of Western influence or hold on our economy is to go east, which I think that should not be the case, but rather we should focus more on pursuing a more African agenda as an antidote to both the Western influence and the fear of the Eastern influence.
And how do we pursue that?
I mean, I agree with you, but the issue then for me becomes what kind of relation should we have with East or West? I'm not against relations with. I mean, I'm not sure if you are saying Pan-Africanism means that we should not have economic relations.
No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't
because,
mean that.
For example, today, Germany, without access to the Chinese market, they're in trouble. Until recently, China was the biggest lender to the United States. Everybody is selling in the Chinese market. Everybody is producing in the Chinese market. Everybody is trying to access the Chinese market.
Right.
So on their terms. So it is about on what terms do we have relations with these countries. The model that the West established of dominance is the template along which others are trying to come. So in changing that template, it is fundamental that, so the revolt against France in the Francophone countries, particularly what is happening in Niger, Mali, and
Burkina Faso,
and to a lesser extent in Guinea, reflects a revolt against that colonial. I'm not sure that the soldiers in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso are engaged in a process of, say, a radical transformation agenda, which will move their people away from neo-colonial dependence. Because these are small, isolated countries. So a strategy which actually detaches them from the rest of the African integration project, I think it's unfortunate. I think ECOWAS bears some responsibility for the crisis which has come across. So that what they are going on now, frankly, is a populist reflex against where they find themselves.
Right. So gentlemen, if we can now focus on solutions because we don't have so much time. Let me start with you, Dr. Ismail Robo.
Okay, so the solution is simply that as Africans, we need to have an agenda which we define for ourselves.
Have we not always had it? Have we not always had it?
And of course, it's an agenda that we should be politically committed to in terms of determining on our own how we relate to these major powers and having the focus that our interests should be paramount to whatever relation we want to establish. Yes, of course, you can't do without the relations, but you must also be having relations that you clearly define your interest in the relation and put in mechanisms to safeguard those interests. That is the only way. And no African country as it is now can on its own do that. We need a collectivity of Africans politically committed to be able to define where Africa stands, where Africa wants to go, and the relation it wants to have with the external powers.
Dr. Graham?
Yes. One of the key things Nkrumah was concerned about, which remains relevant, is that Africans should oppose foreign bases on the continent because it makes you proxy for superpower rivalries. So Wagner in Burkina or Mali or wherever, we should be opposed to foreign military presence. The US and NATO troops out of Ghana. So no foreign bases in Africa. Two, the principal economic problem that we have on this continent is that we are primary commodity export dependent countries. So the agenda of how we get out of primary commodity export dependence must be the fulcrum around which the African transformation agenda is built at the Pan-African level. And a number of policies have been laid out by the AU, which I think we can highlight as very important. So, for example, the African mining vision and this agenda offers a pathway to how minerals can become vectors of development and transformation, not simply a source of revenue from selling raw minerals, but also raw material that powers our own transformation through building linkages between the mineral sector and the rest of our economies at the regional, to scale from the Pan-African to the local. There's an African industrialization agenda which has been put out there, which recognizes the need, the centrality of industrialization. That is linked to the mineral issue I'm talking about, and also to the urgency of an agrarian transition. Because across Africa, the young people are leaving the countryside because there's no work. Because of the primary commodity export dependence, there's other sectors of the economies are not receiving enough attention. So I'm just taking 3 issues around which a Pan-African approach offers a way of freedom from the presence of foreign troops who can interfere in our affairs, and also 2 pillars of economic transformation: industrialization and a mineral-based, linkages development, which would, optimize Africa's resources, and also mean that at the moment we export a lot of raw material,
right?
Which means also that it is inefficient. If you take the fact that the West will take 1 ton, a company in Europe will take 1 ton of aluminum, and out of that there'll be fabrication, there'll be jobs created, there's a knowledge economy doing research and development and so on. So our resources that we export in raw form, it's not simply about the material products that come out of it, but there's a whole knowledge and services economy which are embodied and pulled around those things. So we should not be talking the Pan-Africanism in the abstract and that Africa must unite, Africa must integrate. Nkrumah's book, Africa Must Unite, was a transformation charter based on an analysis of economic things.
Sure.
So even that remains relevant. And I'll just give 3 examples. Industrializations, minerals and development, agrarian transition, underpinned by freedom from the presence of foreign troops who interfere in our politics.
Right.
And also our leaders should start serving our people rather than foreign governments, as exemplified by the example I gave of President Akufo-Addo reporting Burkina Faso to Blinken.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Yao Graham is with Third World Network, and also you also heard international relations analyst Dr. Ishmael Holobo. We've been discussing the African Union and how best we can become politically and economically independent. This is a pause here on Joy News. We'll take a short break. I'll be back. Well, that's it for this Monday's edition of The Pause. But remember, we are keeping an eye on the ongoing NPP National Executive Committee and National Council meeting on the choice of campaign members for the 2024 election, of course, the new leadership in Parliament. We have more stories on myjoyonline.com. EC sticks with December 7 voting day for 2024. The multimedia group launches election headquarters for comprehensive 2024 election coverage. 2024 election, EC makes U-turn on decision to eliminate use of Indelible in Ghana to expand cocoa rehabilitation with $200 million World Bank loan. Also, the BBC Komla Domo Award 2024 has also been launched as well. So these plus many other stories on myjoyonline.com. We have more stories coming your way, of course, on Top Story, on News 9, and on Joy News Prime. My name is Elton Broby. Have a good evening.